Hi, my name's Nick Smith and I'm the parliamentary candidate for Lincoln for UKIP.
Welcome to the Lincolnite, Nick. Let's kick off with housing and development to begin with. There are more than 3,000 people on the City Council waiting list and there's a general shortage of housing in the city. How would you address that?
Absolutely, it's a crisis. It is bad. There isn't enough houses to go round. The question is, do we build more in the city or do we build an actual suburb outside? That's an idea that we've been thinking about in UKIP in Lincoln. Perhaps building another village on the outskirts of the bypass. The other thing is, of course, with UKIP you'd be getting a £10,000 grant to builders to build on the brownfield sites. So if we used our ground that we've got in Lincoln to better use, I think that would be a much better way of moving forward for the people that need housing, and they do need it.
Sure, and where would you like to put a new sort of suburb?
We're thinking outside. This is the problem with our council system. You have the city council and then you have the other district councils around it. But of course, to build something outside the city limits would make more sense than building on the Swan Pool, because if we build on the Swan Pool, it's a floodplain. Now that's a disaster waiting to happen, isn't it? So we think that you should build a suburb perhaps on the outskirts of the actual, of the city, maybe at the top. Up near the A15, that's an idea.
Yeah. And what are the problems with affordable housing in the city? Are there enough affordable homes?
Well, obviously having a big student population, that uses up a lot of our housing stock. That is changing slightly, of course, because we're building the new big accommodation blocks for students. How many of those student homes will become available back to rental in the open market, I don't know.
Okay, let's move on to business and the economy then, another really important issue to voters here. What measures would you implement to help businesses grow and prosper in the city, addressing the skills gap on one hand and ensuring that workers are paid a decent wage on the other? Yeah,
well, the skills gap is we've got the university working towards engineering, which is fantastic. It's not huge numbers, but it's starting. It's a good thing. The problem we have is the universities are kicking out a lot of people with good degrees. They're not necessarily what we need for business in this country, because Tony Blair's big idea back in the day was to knock 50% of people through university. It's a laudable aim. The problem is, are they coming out with the right qualifications to actually assist business in creating more jobs? So that's the first point. As far as the wages are concerned, the minimum wage is starting to become in Lincoln the maximum wage, and the reason for that is really down to oversupply. If you think about it, if you set up a business in Lincoln, you're not short of people. You're not going to be short of people. Okay, so we've got many well-educated, well-motivated students, fantastic, but they all like a bit of part-time work, if not full-time work, because they've got big bills to carry, haven't they? They've got the student loans to carry. And then, of course, we've got immigration as well from Eastern Europe, which is good to some degree. They're well educated, well motivated, good young people, but they do need jobs, houses. It all ties in together. So the indigenous people of Lincoln are in a bit of a squeeze with very well educated, very well motivated, large numbers coming into Lincoln. They've somehow got to find jobs which are meaningful and bring in enough money for them to start their lives. You can't pay rent for a house if you're only on 16 hours a week on the minimum wage. That's not good enough.
You mentioned universities a lot in your previous answer. Let's move on to schools and higher education then. Do you think it's right for most students today to start their working life with at least £27,000 worth of debt? And that's not taking into account accommodation and living costs.
Absolutely not. Look, I'm in the same boat. My daughter's at Hull University. She's going to leave this year, 3-year course. Even if she gets a degree, she's going to have massive debt. It's wrong. But I'm amazed that there's so many people considering voting Labour when it was Tony Blair in the Health and Education Act 1998 introduced tuition fees. This is a party that sits here. Lucy says, oh no, we don't want, I think it's terrible they leave with university tuition fees. Well, who brought them in? It was Tony Blair's big idea to have 50% of pupils going to university. Now, we think in UKIP that was a wrong move, because we believe the STEM subjects, science, technology, education, medical degrees, should be free. So you get your, if you work for 5 years after in the UK, then obviously your student fees, tuition fees are waived. That's a good thing. We don't think that we should be putting quite so many people through academic qualifications. We believe that there should be more people going into vocational qualifications, which is what businesses need. So that's got to change as time goes forward. And I think it's wrong that they're going to leave with these huge amounts. And the biggest problem of all is, of course, they aren't paying it back. They can't pay it back. Why can't, it's ridiculous to expect them to pay back these sums. I mean, we're talking 45% at the moment aren't being paid back. And many students that come from the EU countries, we're obliged to allow them to take out loans. 2 years ago, only 11% were paying back those loans. You're not going to get the money back from them. So it's unfortunate.
Sure. So how would you like to see higher education funded?
Well, directly from taxation mainly. Most of it is paid anyway from taxation. It's only the tuition fees, if you think about it, they're being paid by the student. That isn't the full cost of your university education. So we need to decide what we really need from universities, what vocational courses we really need in the economy, and then well fund those and cut back on some of the less advantageous degrees. I feel that a lot of young people were sold a big fat lie that if they went to university and got a degree, they'd have a fantastic future with a great job at the end of it. I only had a phone call the other day by somebody who had a medical degree in biosciences. She's unemployed, 27, can't find a job. So it is a lie to tell people that if you just get a degree, you're going to be smack on and you're going to get a really good wage. It doesn't work like that. Somebody should have pointed out to Tony Blair when he brought this big idea out, that 50% of the jobs in the job market don't have a remuneration package equal to a degree. That's a fact. Nobody pointed it out to him. So a lot of young people have been let down dramatically by these Labour policies.
Okay, let's move on to the NHS and pressure on NHS services in particular. A shortage of staff and money has plunged ULHT into black alert over the winter. Who only just come out of special measures, and the trust has had to pay more than £30 million in negligence compensation. How would you address these problems? Well,
it's a big problem, but we are in UKIP going to put in £12 billion over the next Parliament if we're elected. That's the first point, money, but it's not just money. We need to see SEN training coming back, state enrolled nurse training. That would help. We want matrons back on the ward. That would help. Get rid of some of the managers. There's a lot of managers hoovering up a lot of cash, and they've proved themselves utterly incompetent. We ended up a few years ago with a shortage of nurses. So 20,000 young people applied to be nurses in this country and were told, no, we don't need you. 2 years later, we've got a shortage of nurses and we're bringing in 20,000 nurses from abroad. Now, when you bring in lots of nurses from abroad, that's fine, but there is a downside. Communication is one of the biggest things in a hospital. Now, if you're all trained in different countries and different standards and different ways of doing things, and you all have a fair degree of different language skills, I would bet my bottom dollar that £30 million of negligence cost, a lot of that comes down to the fact that communication isn't working well within hospitals and managers aren't being able to do their job properly. What I would suggest is we start training our own nurses and stop stealing them from countries around the world that can ill afford to lose trained staff. But going forward, we do need good immigration. We need the best immigration. That's what UKIP's all about, bringing in the best people and the brightest.
Okay, let's round it off with the much talked about Eastern Bypass. I think most people agree there's a need for it to be built, but should it be dualled and should it cut off Hawthorne Road? I was speaking yesterday to one of our county councillors on the planning committee, and he was telling me that even though the single plan that we've got now is already going to be dual ready, we'll call it that. But my personal opinion is even if you made it dual ready, that means that the bridges are wide enough to accommodate a second lane once you're ready. I think it's utter madness to not do it now. I mean, if we don't do this now, we'll be coming back in the future to a massive bill. You and I both know that when we dual something, it all has to be redone in a large way. So the dualling of it's massively important. If I'm your next MP, I will make sure I find that 40 million extra to dual it. And since we've got these delays, maybe it's fortuitous that we've got these delays, so we can get the money. Right now, there is money pouring out of our government in all kinds of areas. There's a National Citizens Service, for God's sake. What the hell is that? And that's 60-odd million pounds wasted on that a year. And we only need 40 million for an infrastructure project which is going to last, 40, 50 years minimum. We need this for Lincoln. If you think about it, this is crucial to the future development of Lincoln, and we need it dualled. Nick Smith, thank you for your time.
Okay. People of Lincoln, This is your chance to change the direction of your country, not just Lincoln. It's important that you make this vote count, and that means voting for UKIP will bring you all the things that are in our fully costed manifesto. We have got lots of great ideas for the country. We do want to come out of Europe, yes, and we do want to control our borders. These are very important issues. And if you vote for me, I'll work hard for Lincoln and support the people of Lincoln in the best future we can manage.